The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the city still wore it. Every storefront mirrored in black water. Every streetlight doubled on the asphalt like a second flame beneath the first. Casimir Draven kept his hands at exactly 10 and 2 on the wheel, because if he let them loose, they would shake. "You were quiet tonight." Saskia's voice was soft. It was always soft. She had learned, in the 3 years he had known her, to tune her voice to whatever he needed, and tonight, he needed quiet. So she gave him quiet with only the smallest complaint folded inside it. "I was listening." "You were somewhere else." He did not answer. Somewhere else was the only place he went anymore. The engagement dinner had ended at 9. Her father had stood, glass raised, and said something about two great houses joining, and the room had applauded as if the words were new. Casimir had smiled the way he smiled now, the way he had been smiling for 4 years, with his face and nothing beneath it. "Your parents adored you," Saskia said. "My parents adore everyone who brings them a daughter-in-law." A small sound, not a laugh. She turned her face to the window. The light at Kestrel and Mercer went red, and Casimir eased the car to a stop. Two women crossed in the crosswalk, coat collars up against the wind, and then behind them a smaller figure hurried, half walking, half running, one hand held out to each side. One hand held a child. The other hand held another child. Casimir's foot slipped off the brake, and the car lurched half a foot forward before he caught it. Saskia made a small sound. "Sorry, I thought the light changed." But he was not looking at the light. The woman in the crosswalk had her head down against the wind. She was moving fast, hurrying the children across before the cars that waited on either side of her, and her hood was pulled up, and there was no reason in the world, for the skin at the back of his neck to have gone cold. The child on her right stumbled. She bent. She stopped in the middle of the crosswalk and bent to help the child right itself, and the motion tipped her hood back an inch. Just an inch, and the streetlight caught the side of her face. Casimir forgot to breathe. It was not possible. It was not possible because he had searched for 4 years, because every private investigator on 2 continents had come back with nothing, because his father had told him, gently, the way men tell other men that their dogs have been put down, that sometimes people did not want to be found, and that he should honor her choice. It was not possible because he had stood over an empty bed in an empty room 4 years ago, and he had known, the way an alpha knows these things, that she was gone. It was her. She picked the child up, set the child back on its feet, took the small hand in her own again. She did not look up. She did not look at the cars, or at the buildings, or at anything but the pavement in front of her children's feet, and in the space of 3 heartbeats, she was across the crosswalk and on the other sidewalk and turning down Mercer toward the park, and she was walking away from him. Behind him a horn sounded. Casimir could not move. He could see the back of her head. He could see the hood she had pulled up again, could see the shape of her shoulders that he would have known in the dark of the deepest forest. He could see the way she walked, slightly favoring her left side, the way she had always walked since the winter he had carried her through a snowdrift, and her ankle had never quite healed the same. "Cass." Saskia's voice, very far away. "Cass, the light." Behind him, 2 more horns. Someone shouted. The mark on his ribs, the one he had believed dead for 4 years, the one he had stopped touching because touching it had nearly killed him. The mark flared beneath his shirt with a heat so sudden he heard himself make a sound. "Cass, what is wrong with you?" He turned the wheel. He did not think about it. He did not decide. He pulled the car out of the lane and into the empty space beside the curb, and he threw it into park before the engine had finished the motion. "Stay here." "Where are you going?" He was already out of the car. The cold hit him. The air was full of wet asphalt and exhaust, and the sour smell of the river 4 blocks south. And under all of it, buried in it, rising up at him like a pulse he had not felt in 4 years, was the scent of her. He ran. He ran down Mercer, past the closed laundromat, past the taqueria, with its neon sign humming, past the mouth of the alley where he had last seen her hood turning, and he came around the corner onto the block, and the sidewalk was full of people leaving a late movie, and there were mothers, and there were children, and there were women in hoods, and he could not find her. He turned in a circle. He closed his eyes. He reached, the way he had not reached in 4 years, reached through the mark and through the memory and through the hole in his chest where she had lived, and for one endless second he felt her so close, he could have touched her if he had known which way to turn. Then the feeling snapped shut like a door. He opened his eyes. The street had emptied. The moviegoers had scattered into their cars. A bus hissed past him and took the last of the warmth with it. He stood alone on the corner with his breath white in front of his face, and his hands open at his sides, as if he were still expecting something to be placed into them. She was gone. 2 children. She had been holding 2 children, one on the left, one on the right. Twins. His knees almost gave out. He caught himself on a parking meter, and the metal was so cold it burned his palm, and he stood there with his forehead against the meter for what might have been a minute or an hour, his chest working, his throat closed, trying to do the arithmetic and failing because the arithmetic was simple. Twins. 4 years. She had been pregnant the night she disappeared. She had been pregnant, and he had not known, and for 4 years he had believed the note. Behind him, down the block, he heard his car door open. He heard Saskia calling his name, her voice thin with something that was not quite confusion and not quite fear. He did not turn. He pressed his hand flat against the parking meter. For 4 years he had slept with the note on his bedside table because he had not been able to throw it away. The note had said she was sorry. The note had said she had met someone. The note had been in her handwriting, and the note had been delivered by a man he trusted, and the note had broken him in a way that nothing had ever broken him before or since. He had believed the note. He had believed it for 4 years. And now there were 2 children in the world with her eyes, and one of them had stumbled in a crosswalk, and a woman who had told him she loved him more than her own life had bent down and picked that child up and walked away, without ever once looking up at the car that sat idling 6 feet from the back of her hood. Cass. Saskia was beside him now. Her hand was on his arm. Cass, you are scaring me. What happened? Who did you see? He looked at her. He looked at the woman he had promised, in front of 200 people, to marry in 11 days. He looked at her beautiful, worried face and the soft fur collar of her coat and the diamond on her finger that his own mother had worn, and he could not make himself say a single word. By the time he remembered how to speak, the corner was empty, the block was empty, and the woman who had once been his whole world was already gone, 4 years earlier. The test had turned pink while she was still sitting on the bathroom floor, her forehead against the cold tile, counting her own heartbeats the way Marin had learned to count them when she was small and the world was too loud. 2 lines. She had picked up the stick with shaking hands and held it to the light and watched the second line gather itself out of nothing, slow and certain, as if her body had been waiting for permission to say it out loud. Pregnant. She sat back against the edge of the bathtub and laughed, and then she cried. And then she laughed again, and her hands moved to her belly the way she had watched other women's hands move, a gesture that seemed to come from nowhere and to know exactly where it was going. She had been practicing the words all afternoon. I have something to tell you. No, too solemn. Guess what? No, too light. Cass, we are going to have a baby. Simple. Direct. It was the way he liked things. It was the way he spoke, always. The blunt kindness of a man who had been trained since childhood to mean every word he said. He had told her, the last time he had come through her door, that he loved her more than his own life. He had told her that in 11 days he would stand in front of his family and his pack and the entire city of Haldren, and he would announce her. That she would never again have to hide in the apartment he had paid for, never again have to use the back stairwell, never again have to be the secret that wore his mark under her clothes. 11 days. She had counted them on the calendar in the kitchen that morning. She had drawn a small star around the 11th day, and she had thought, when the star is closed, I will tell him that there are 3 of us now. She was still sitting on the bathroom floor when the knock came. It was not his knock. His knock was 3 taps, spaced. This knock was one flat sound, heavy, and the knock of a fist that did not expect to be refused. Maren rose. She wiped her hands on the front of her sweater. She walked barefoot across the little apartment and she opened the door. The man on the other side of it was not Casimir. He was older, silver at the temples, dressed in a coat so well made that she could see the seams only because she had been taught to look for them. Behind him stood a woman in a charcoal suit with a leather folder under her arm. Miss Ashcombe, the older man said, my name is Corin Halvern. I think we should talk. Her knees did not give out. She would remember that later. She would remember that her body had known in some animal way that she was not allowed to fall down in front of this man, and so her body had held her up. Please, she said. Come in. She did not offer them tea. She did not turn on another lamp. She sat on the edge of her couch, and she folded her hands in her lap, and she listened while Corin Halvern explained to her, in the gentle, patient voice of a man who had done this many times before, what she already, on some level, knew. There were photographs. There was a contract, 6 months old, signed and notarized and sealed with the mark of Casimir's father, pledging the son of the Draven line to the daughter of the Halvern line before the next full moon ceremony. There was footage, taken 3 hours ago in a ballroom she had never been in, of Casimir standing beside a beautiful, dark-haired woman with a diamond on her finger and his mother's hand on her arm. There was a document, on Casimir's own letterhead, signed in his own hand, formally setting aside all claims of prior attachment in favor of the alliance. Maren looked at the document for a long time. She knew his handwriting. She knew the way he crossed his sevens. She knew the small curl he added to the tail of the letter Y when he was tired. The signature was his. She did not cry. She would remember that too, later. She simply looked at the signature and felt something inside her fold itself down. Small, 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 until it was the size of a stone she could hold in one closed hand. I see, she said. Corin Halvern folded the document back into the folder. There is one more matter, he said. Your father. Her head came up. My father is in the Wellgrove facility in Portland. Yes. He has late-stage dementia. Yes. The facility is paid for by a trust my mother set up before she died. It is not your concern. Corin Halvern did not smile. He did not need to. The Wellgrove facility belongs to the Halvern family, Miss Ashcombe. It has since the spring of 1991. Your mother's trust pays the lease. The lease is set to renew at the end of this month. She understood. She understood everything in one slow, icy wave. And when it had finished moving through her, she understood one more thing, which was that she had never once, in the 6 months she had loved Casimir Draven, truly belonged to the world he lived in. What do you want me to do? Corin Halvern placed a single sheet of her own stationery on the coffee table, a pen beside it. Write what I tell you to write. Pack a bag. There is a car outside. You will be on a plane to Seattle in an hour. Your father will not be disturbed. She sat down at the coffee table. She picked up the pen. Cass, she wrote in her own hand, because Corin Halvern spoke the words and she wrote them. I am so sorry. I have met someone else. Please do not look for me. She signed it Maren because that was her name, and her name was the only thing in the world that was still hers. When she stood, she slipped the ring he had given her off her finger, and she set it on top of the note. She walked out of the apartment barefoot. She put her shoes on in the elevator. By the time she was on the plane, her hand had already started to move, without her permission, to the place below her belly where the second line had appeared that afternoon, where there were now, although she did not yet know it, two small hearts beating in the dark. She pressed her palm flat. "I am sorry," she whispered to them. "I am so sorry." Outside the plane window, the lights of the city fell away into nothing. 4 years after, and spring did not want to come to Briar Cove. The fog had been on the cove for 6 days running, thick enough in the mornings to lose your hand in if you held it out in front of you, and Marinvale had stopped trying to fight it. She wore the thickest sweater she owned, and she walked the twins to the preschool along the gravel road with one on each hand. And she pretended, for their sake, that she could see the lighthouse at the end of the jetty that she could not see at all. "Is Miss Delphine coming tonight?" Wren asked. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can we have the soup?" "I already started it." "Can Oren have extra bread?" "Oren can have extra bread if he eats his carrots." On her left hand, Oren squeezed her fingers. He did not speak as much as his sister. He watched things. He watched his sister. He watched the sky. He watched, today, a black car that had been parked across the road from the preschool the morning before, and he watched the same black car now as it rolled slowly past them down the gravel road, and his small hand tightened in hers the way a much older boy's would have tightened. Marin did not turn her head. She had trained herself, over 4 years, not to turn her head. The car passed. Its tires crunched wet gravel. It did not stop. It had not stopped yesterday either, or the day before, and she told herself again that she was being foolish, that Briar Cove was a small town, and the same 3 cars drove every road on every day, and that no one had found her, no one had found her, no one would ever find her. She kissed the twins at the preschool gate. Wren hugged her neck. Oren looked up at her with eyes that were too golden for a 3-year-old child's eyes, and he said, "You left the kitchen light on." "Did I?" "It will be on when we come home." "Yes, my love." He nodded, satisfied with an answer he had seemed to require, and he followed his sister inside. Marin stood at the gate for 1 beat too long. The fog was cold against her face. The mark on her ribs, the mark that had never once in 4 years begun to fade. The mark she had stopped looking at in the mirror because looking at it broke her in ways she did not have time to be broken in. The mark was warm today. She walked to work with both hands in her pockets. The bakery on Larkin Street opened at 6. Delphine, who owned it, had given her the job the week she arrived in Briar Cove, had asked no questions about the swollen belly or the borrowed surname, or the way she cried in the walk-in freezer once and came out pretending it had not happened. Delphine had simply handed her an apron and shown her how to fold the cinnamon dough and said, "Everyone who comes to this coast is running from something. Mine was a husband. You keep your secrets. I will keep mine." 4 years later, they still had not spoken of it. This morning, Marin rolled out the dough while Delphine ran the till, and the bell over the door rang and rang and rang. A woman from the library, a fisherman for his wife's birthday loaf, the postman who always took a cruller standing up, the usual, the safe, the quiet. At 9:30, Delphine leaned her elbows on the counter and said, "You look tired, love." "I did not sleep." "Dreams again?" Marin did not answer. Delphine did not press. The dreams had come every night for 4 years. In them, Casimir Draven stood at the foot of her bed and he did not say anything. He only looked at her. Sometimes he reached for her, and his hand passed through her like mist. Sometimes he was weeping. Sometimes she could feel, through the mark, a pulse of warmth that she had to clench her jaw against so that she would not cry out in her sleep and wake the children. She had told herself 100 times that the mark was only a scar, that a rejected mark would fade in weeks, that the bond had been severed the moment he signed the document on the Halvern letterhead, and that what she felt, what she had been feeling for 4 years, was only her own grief impersonating him. She had told herself that. She had not once, believed herself. At noon she walked home to fetch the pot of soup she had left simmering. The fog had lifted an inch. The gravel road was wet. She came around the curve of her own lane and stopped walking. There was a black car parked across the road from her cottage. It was the same car that had passed her this morning. It was the same car that had been by the preschool yesterday. She could see it clearly now because the fog had thinned, and she could see also that there was no one sitting in the driver's seat, which meant that whoever had been driving it was either inside her cottage or standing somewhere in the trees beside it. The mark on her ribs, which had been warm all morning, was hot now. Hot enough that she put her hand against it through the wool of her sweater. Hot enough that she understood, with a calm that surprised her, that she had known this was coming for 6 days, and that some part of her had been waiting for it for 4 years. Inside the cottage, something moved. She took one slow step backward. And then, from the direction of the preschool, she heard a sound she had never heard in Briar Cove, a sound that did not belong to the gulls or the fog, or the small safe life she had spent 4 years building. She heard a child scream. It was Wren. Maren ran. She did not think about her coat. She did not think about the soup. She did not think about the pot she had left simmering on a burner for 2 hours, and whether it had begun to char at the bottom because she was running down the gravel road toward the direction of her children, and there was nothing else in the world. She did not run the way women in Briar Cove ran when they were late for the ferry. She ran the way an animal ran, long strides, low breath, eyes fixed on the point ahead, and her sweater flapping open behind her like a small wet wing. Something in her chest had unlocked, something she had not let out in 4 years. The preschool gate was open. She came through it and she came across the yard, and she came through the front door and she found her children in the reading corner, and her daughter was not bleeding. Wren was curled against Orrin in the beanbag chair, and her small face was pressed into her brother's shoulder and she was crying. Not the loud, bright crying of a scraped knee. The other kind. The quiet kind. The kind that starts in a child's chest and does not know where it is going. The preschool teacher, Mr. Finley, stood 3 feet away from them with his hands held up, the way people hold up their hands when they do not know what else to do. Miss Vale, she just started screaming. There was nothing. She was at the table. She was drawing a picture of a lighthouse. And then she screamed. Maren knelt in front of the beanbag. Wren. Wren, look at me. Look at Mama. Wren lifted her head. Her eyes were gold. Only for a second. Only for the smallest possible second. The color of molten amber pushing through the soft hazel of a 3-year-old's eyes. And then it was gone. And they were her eyes again, and she was only a child, and she was only weeping. Mama, Wren whispered, something bad is at our house. Maren did not move. What do you mean, my love? Something bad. It is standing in our kitchen. It has Orrin's face. She said Orrin's face, but Orrin was sitting next to her, breathing into the crook of her neck, small and warm and whole. Maren looked at him. His eyes were down. His small hand was on his sister's back. He did not look up. He did not need to. He knew what his sister had seen. Maren put her arms around both of them. We are going home a different way, she said. Mr. Finley, I am taking them now. Thank you. Mr. Finley said something she did not hear. She carried them out, one on each hip, although Orrin was too heavy and Wren was too tall, and she did not stop carrying them until she was 2 streets away from the school and she could not go on. And then she set them down and she knelt in front of them on the wet sidewalk, and she said the words her mother had said to her when she was small and her mother had still been alive. You are safe. You are safe. You are safe. Orrin lifted his face. His golden eyes were steady. Is he the bad one? She did not know what to say. Who, my love? The man at our house. Is he the bad one, or the other one? The mark on her ribs pulsed. She did not answer. She walked them home by the long route along the cliff path above the cove, where the gulls wheeled white against the gray, and she did not think about what Orrin had said, about the bad one and the other one, because she did not have the strength to think about it yet. Her cottage came into view at the end of the cliff path. The black car was gone. The front door was open by the width of a handspan. She set the twins down in the grass beside the shed. She put a finger to her lips. She pointed at the shed and she said, "Inside. On the floor. Not a sound. If you hear me call your name twice, come. If you hear me call your name once, or if you hear anything else, stay where you are and hold each other and count to 100 before you come out." Ren nodded. Oren nodded. They went into the shed, and they did not close the door because closing the door made the hinge creak, and Marin's children had been listening to her all their small lives. Marin took the cast-iron skillet from the iron hook beside the shed door. She walked to her own front door. She went inside her own house with a skillet in her hand and her heart in her teeth. The man at her kitchen table did not stand up when she came in. He was older. He had gray at the temples. He had a long coat folded over the back of the chair beside him, and he was holding a mug of tea that he had made himself from the kettle on her stove, and he was holding it carefully, the way a man holds a cup when he is trying very hard not to look like a threat. His eyes, when he raised them to hers, were amber. "Miss Ashcombe," he said. "My name is Ambrose Kane. I am the first beta to the Alpha of Haldren. I have been looking for you for 4 years. Please do not hit me with the skillet." She did not lower the skillet. "Get out of my house." "I will. I promise I will. I will walk out of this door in 10 minutes, and I will never come back if you want me to never come back. But you need to hear what I am going to say first, because the men who are coming here tonight will not be as polite as I am." She did not move. "How did you find me?" "By accident. A surveillance camera at a crosswalk at Kestrel and Mercer, last night, caught the back of your head. My king saw it before I did." Her throat closed. "He is not my king." "No. But the mark on your ribs disagrees." The skillet dipped an inch. She did not let herself notice. "What do you want?" Ambrose Kane reached into his coat and he laid a folder on the table. Then another. Then another. 4 thick folders, each of them bound with a black ribbon, each of them labeled with a handwritten year. "These are the investigator reports, Miss Ashcombe. There are 4 years of them. Every country, every name you could have used. He has not stopped. He has not slept more than 3 hours in a row in 4 years. He has torn through every piece of the life he had before the night you left. And when I walked into his office yesterday morning, he was sitting at his desk with his hands on this folder, and he was reading the last report for the 400th time, and he was whispering your name as if whispering it was the only thing keeping him alive." She set the skillet down on the counter. Her legs did not carry her to the table. She stayed where she was. "There is one more thing you should know," Ambrose said. His voice was very gentle. "The note you wrote. The one that said you had met someone. He kept it for 4 years, and he believed it for 4 years. And I have come a very long way to tell you that he was shown a forgery of his own signature that night. He never set you aside. He never agreed to the Halvern alliance. He has been grieving a woman he thought had left him, while you have been grieving a man who never chose anyone else." Marin put her hand on the edge of the counter to hold herself up. "My father," she said. "Your father is alive. He was released from Wellgrove the morning after you disappeared. The Halverns had no further use for him. He has been in a smaller facility in Eugene for 18 months. We can take you to him when this is over." The cup in Ambrose's hand was shaking. She realized, slowly, that he was trying very hard not to cry. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Corin Halvern saw the footage too. Because he knows where you are. Because the wedding is in 11 days, and if you and the children are alive on the day of the wedding, the Halvern claim is void. There are 4 men on their way here tonight, Miss Ashcombe. Probably 5. You have, by my estimate, 17 minutes." Marin turned to the window above the sink. Through the fog, through the trees, at the far end of her own long driveway, she could see the glow of 2 headlights rising up the gravel road. 17 minutes, she said, was generous. Ambrose was already moving. He came around the kitchen table with a speed that did not match his gray temples, and he was at the side door with his coat over one shoulder and his other hand reaching under the coat for something that was not a coat. And he said, without turning, "Where are they?" "The shed. Behind the cottage." "Call them. Now. Get them inside this house and into a room without windows." Marin was already at the back door. She whistled once, short and sharp, the whistle she had used for 4 years when she needed the twins to come running, and Wren came out of the shed first, and then Oren, and they ran across the wet grass with their small, serious faces, and they came up the back steps and they came inside, and she locked the back door behind them and she drove the bolt. "Cellar," she said. "The one under the pantry, behind the shelves. You remember?" "Yes, Mama," Wren said. "Take the blankets. Take the flashlight. Do not come out. Do not come out for anyone. Do not come out for me." Oren did not move. "Mama. Oren, now. Mama, there are 5. She stopped. "What?" His small face was turned up at her. His golden eyes had come back. 5 men. 1 is in front. 2 are behind. 2 are in the trees. "How do you know?" "I can hear them breathing." Marin did not have the time to be afraid of her own son. "Cellar. Now. Take your sister." He took his sister. They went. In the front hall, Ambrose Kane had pulled a short black weapon from under his coat that she did not recognize and did not want to recognize. He was not looking at her. He was looking at the front window. "They are going to come in 3 directions at once," he said. "Through the front. Through the back. Through the bedroom window on the east side. I can hold 2 of those. I cannot hold 3. "How long until he gets here?" Ambrose did not pretend not to understand the question. "He left Haldren 18 minutes ago. He is driving a car that is not built to be driven the way he is driving it. On the best roads, he is still 40 minutes out. We do not have 40 minutes. No, we do not." She looked at her hands. She looked at her own trembling hands and she thought of her son counting the men in the trees by the sound of their breathing, and she thought of Wren crying in the beanbag chair with molten gold pushing through her eyes, and she thought of Casimir Draven driving too fast on a road 40 minutes away, and she thought of the mark on her ribs that had not stopped burning since noon. Something inside her stood up. Something inside her that had been kneeling for 4 years stood up. "Ambrose," she said. "Yes." "Where do you want me?" He looked at her. He did not ask if she was sure. He did not tell her to hide. He was a wolf old enough to know what it looked like when a mate woke up from the dead. "Bedroom window," he said. "East side. If they come in that way, you will see them first. Do not try to fight them alone. Slow them down. Make them think the house is full." She took the skillet. She took a long kitchen knife. She walked down the hall to the bedroom on the east side, and she stood with her back to the wall and she waited. The glass came in 30 seconds later. He was big. Black mask, black coat, a knife in one hand and a needle in the other. And he came through the broken window low and fast, and he was 3 feet from her by the time her eyes had adjusted to the movement. She did not swing the skillet. She opened her mouth. She did not know what came out of it. It was not a scream. It was not a word. It was a sound that came up from somewhere low in her chest, a sound that did not belong to her voice, a sound that had the weight and the shape of a command, and the man in the mask stopped moving. He stopped moving in the middle of his own step. His eyes went wide above the mask. Marin did not understand what she had just done. She did not have time to understand. She brought the skillet around with everything she had. The man went down. She was breathing in hard, short, shallow breaths. The mark on her ribs was burning. The sound she had made was still echoing in the small room, as if the walls had not finished catching it. Down the hall, she heard Ambrose fire his black weapon twice. A wolf snarl. A man screaming. Silence. "Marin," Ambrose called. "The back door." She came out of the bedroom. The back door splintered as she reached it. 2 men came through, bigger than the first. They did not wear masks. Their eyes were already the color of old copper, already shifting, and behind them she saw a third man with a rifle raised. She opened her mouth. The sound came out of her again. Only the man in front stopped this time. The other two did not. They were older wolves, stronger wolves, and whatever small cracked fragment of her mate's authority she had borrowed for a breath was not enough for them. The man with the rifle fired. Ambrose took the shot in the shoulder and went to one knee. Maren threw the knife. She had never thrown a knife in her life, and the knife turned end over end in the small kitchen like something that had remembered, on its own, what knives were for, and it took the rifleman in the chest and he went backward through the doorway he had just come in. The other two were on top of Ambrose. Maren did not think. She ran at them. She ran at two fully shifted wolves with her bare hands, and one of them turned its head to snap at her. And she got her forearm across its muzzle, and she felt the teeth close, and she felt the bone, and she did not let go. Above the cottage, on the roof, something landed. Something heavy enough that the rafters groaned. Both of the wolves stopped moving. The one with her arm in its mouth let her go. Both of them looked up at the ceiling, at the sound that was coming down through the shingles and through the beams and into the rooms of her small house, and Maren understood, with the last clear thought of a mind that had begun to fill with black water, that the sound above her was not a sound she needed to be afraid of. The sound above her was breathing. Something was breathing on her roof. Something enormous. Then the front door came off its hinges. The door did not fall inward. The door came through the wall. The whole frame went with it. The hinges, the locks, the drywall around them, a long strip of siding, a section of the porch beam, all of it blew into the little front room as if a truck had come through. And behind it, stepping through the hole that had been her front entry, came a wolf the size of a small horse. Maren had seen Casimir shift in the old days. She had watched it happen in the private woods behind the house where they had first kissed, and she had laughed when he had rolled on his back in a patch of wildflowers and demanded that she scratch behind his ear. She had never seen him look like this. He was bigger. He was thinner. His coat was the color of wet coal, and his amber eyes were burning like struck flint, and there was something around him, a heat, a current, a wrong feeling in the air that made the two shifted wolves in her kitchen back away from her with their tails low and their heads lower. He did not look at her first. He looked at the wolves. The sound he made was not a howl. It was not a growl. It was something that lived underneath both of those words, a low shaking noise that came up through the floorboards and rattled the mug on her kitchen table, and the two wolves dropped to their bellies, and then they flattened, and then they crawled backward through the broken back door without taking their eyes off him. He let them go. Then, and only then, he looked at her. She was standing with her back against the wall beside the refrigerator. Her left arm was bleeding. Her right hand was still open, still empty of the knife she had thrown. Her chest was heaving and her hair was in her eyes, and she could not for the life of her make her knees stop shaking. The wolf came across the kitchen one slow step at a time. He did not approach her as a wolf approached prey. He approached her the way a man who has been dying for 4 years approaches water. 3 feet away, he stopped. He lowered his great head. He pressed his forehead, very gently, against her sternum, and he held it there, and she could feel his whole body shaking. Her free hand moved before she knew it was moving. It came up, and it rested on the top of his skull, and for the first time in 4 years she touched him, and the mark on her ribs cracked open like a door she had been leaning against for too long. She did not cry. She did not speak. She stood with her hand on the head of a wolf that was weeping, and she held him up, because he could not hold himself up any more. On the floor behind him, Ambrose made a small sound. "Cass," he said, "the children." The wolf shuddered. She felt him decide. He stepped back from her and he shifted, right there in her kitchen, fur becoming skin, 4 legs becoming 2, and a man was kneeling on her linoleum with blood on his mouth and tears on his face, and no shirt and no shoes, and a pair of black trousers that had somehow stayed with him through the change. Casimir Draven, 20 pounds thinner than the last time she had seen him, older around the eyes by more years than 4, was on his knees in the middle of her broken kitchen. He did not look at her. He looked at the pantry door. "Please," he said. His voice was not a voice. It was the remains of a voice. "Please. May I see them?" Maren did not move. "They are frightened." "I know. They have never seen a man on his knees on our kitchen floor." "I know. They do not know who you are." He closed his eyes. "I know." She looked at him, at the long shape of him on her floor, at the ribs she could count through his skin, at the fresh claiming mark that had cracked open on her own side and was already beginning to heal itself, and she made a choice she had not known she was going to make. "Ren," she called. "Oren, come upstairs." There was a long silence, then a small voice from the other side of the pantry door. "Mama, is the bad one gone?" "The bad ones are gone, my love. There is no bad one in this house anymore." Another silence. The pantry shelves rolled on their track. The hidden door behind them opened. 2 small pale faces came up the cellar stairs, and they came through the pantry, and they came out into the kitchen, and they stopped. They stopped because there was a man on their kitchen floor. Oren was in front. Oren was always in front when there was something new in the room. He looked at Casimir for a long time. Casimir did not move. Casimir did not raise his hands. Casimir did not do the thing that every adult did in front of children he wanted something from. The leaning, the smiling, the too bright voice. Casimir stayed where he was, on his knees, on the floor, with his hands open at his sides, as if he had been put there by a stronger hand than his own and had not yet been given permission to get up. Oren took 1 step forward. He tilted his head. "Are you him?" Oren said. Casimir's face did not know how to work. "Him who?" he said. "The other one. Mama dreams about the other one. Mama dreams about a man with yellow eyes who comes and stands at the end of our bed and does not speak." Maren made a sound she did not mean to make. Casimir did not look at her. He kept his eyes on the boy. "Yes," he said. "I am the other one." Ren came up behind her brother. She peered around his shoulder. Her small hand found his small hand. "You are crying," she said. "Yes," Casimir said. "Why?" "Because I have been looking for you for a long time." Ren considered him. "Did you find us?" "Yes." "Then why are you still crying?" He could not answer her. He put his face in his hands. Maren took 3 steps across the kitchen. She did not go to him. She went to her children. She knelt between them and she put 1 arm around each, and she pressed her forehead to Oren's forehead, and she did not, she would not, let her voice shake when she said the words. "You do not get to touch them." Casimir did not look up. "I know. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until I say you do." "I know, Maren. Say it. I will not touch them until you say I can." Behind her, on the floor, Ambrose coughed once and closed his eyes and did not open them. Her phone, on the kitchen counter where she had left it that morning, began to buzz. It buzzed 3 times, paused, and buzzed 3 more. She reached across the children and she turned the phone over. The message on the screen was from a number she did not have saved. There were 3 words on it, and a photograph. And the photograph was of the back of Ren's head, as she had hugged Maren at the preschool gate that morning. The 3 words were, "We see them." Maren brought the medical kit from the bathroom. She brought towels. She brought the long silver needle she used for suturing the cuts the twins brought home from climbing the rocks by the jetty, and a spool of thick black thread, and a small brown bottle of the tincture she had brewed the summer before from yarrow and willow bark. Casimir carried Ambrose to the couch. He did it with the careful hands of a man who had carried wounded men before, his one arm under Ambrose's knees and the other under his shoulders, and he set him down and he stepped back, and he did not look at Maren because he knew that if he looked at Maren he would come apart where he stood. "The shoulder," Ambrose said. His eyes were still closed. "Go through the shoulder, Miss Ashcombe. Do not try to dig it out. It will come out on its own." "It is a wolf bone round," Maren said. "It is." "How long?" 40 minutes, maybe less. I am an old wolf." She poured the tincture on the wound. He hissed. She threaded the needle. Casimir moved. "The children. They need water. They need food. There is soup on the stove that has probably not burned. Warm it. Feed them. Take them upstairs. Put them in my bed. Do not put them in the bed in the small room at the end of the hall. That is Wren's bed, and she will not sleep in anyone else's bed without an argument. Put them in mine." He did not speak. He went. She heard him in her kitchen. She heard him ladle soup into bowls. She heard him speaking in a voice she had not heard in 4 years, the low voice he used only for creatures smaller than himself, and she heard both of her children answer him, sleepy and polite, and she heard Wren say, "Thank you, mister," and Oren say nothing, and she heard them go up the stairs. She threaded the needle through Ambrose's shoulder. "Miss Ashcombe?" "Yes. I am going to lose consciousness in about 2 minutes. I know. When I wake up, and the chance of me waking up is better than I deserve, please do not let him sit beside me with his face in his hands. I will try. Try harder than that, please." She tied off the thread. Ambrose Kane closed his eyes and did not open them again for 4 hours. She went out onto the broken porch. Casimir was already there. He had swept up the glass. He was holding the splintered door frame upright with one hand, as if he could make it be a door again by force of will, and the fog was coming in through the opening where her door had been, and he was standing in it without a shirt and without shoes, and he did not seem to feel the cold. She sat down on the porch step. After a moment he sat down beside her, not close enough to touch. Far enough that she would not have to feel the heat of him through her sleeve. "You have 11 days, she said. "I know. Your wedding." "There is no wedding. Your fiancée." "She is not my fiancée, Maren. She was never my fiancée. She is a woman whose father bought me." "She has a ring?" "Yes." "She has your mother's ring?" "Yes." "You let her have your mother's ring?" He did not answer. She had not known, until she heard the silence, that she was going to do what she was about to do. She did it anyway. "Oren had a fever when he was 5 months old," she said. 104.8. "I sat with him in the bathtub in cold water for 6 hours because I could not afford to take him to the hospital, and I could not ask anyone for help, and I did not know any other way to bring it down. He screamed the first 4 hours. He stopped screaming the 5th hour. The 6th hour I thought he was dead." Casimir had stopped breathing. Wren nearly bled out when she fell off the chair at 11 months. I held her head together with my hand. I drove myself to the clinic with her bleeding on my shoulder, and her brother screaming beside her in his car seat the whole way to the clinic. Maren. Their first birthday, their second birthday, their third birthday. I made the cakes. I lit the candles. I sang the song alone because there was no one else. Delphine came to the third one. That is the only birthday anyone but me has come to. She was not crying. She would remember that too. You were not there. I know. You were not there because a man walked into my apartment and told me you had signed my life away, and I believed him. I believed him because your signature was on the page. And for 4 years I have been raising your children by myself, and I have been doing it while you were alive, and you were walking around, and you were engaged to someone else, and I had no way of knowing that any of it was a lie. Maren, do not tell me you are sorry. I was not going to. Then what?" He turned toward her. He did not reach for her. He kept his hands in his own lap. He kept 2 feet of fog and broken porch wood between them. "I was going to tell you that I love you," he said. I was going to tell you that for 4 years I have loved you with a love that has become the only religion I have left, and that I know I have no right to say it to you on your porch, in your fog, in the hour after I have brought men with guns to your door. But I have not said it to you in 4 years, and if I do not say it now, I am afraid I will die of it." She put her face in her hands. She did not sob. She simply put her face in her hands and let her shoulders shake, and Casimir Draven did not move toward her, and did not reach for her, and did not say her name, because he had promised her he would not touch her until she said he could, and he was a man who kept the promises he made to her, which was perhaps the worst thing about him. After a long while she lifted her head. "I love you too, Cass." He closed his eyes. "I have loved you every day," she said. "Even the days I was trying not to. Even the days I was furious at you. Even the days I was telling our children that their father was a man who did not exist." A small sound came out of him. "Cass." "Yes." "I am going with you to Haldren tonight." "No." "Yes." "Marin." "If we wait, my children grow up in a world where a man like Corin Halvern can send 5 men to our door. I am not raising them in that world. We end this before your wedding. We end this in front of every camera your city has." He looked at her for a long time. "You always were," he said quietly, "the bravest person I have ever known." "I was also a fool." "You were lied to." "So were you." The sky behind him, above the cove, had begun to turn the color of old steel. Dawn was coming. In the doorway behind them, a small voice said, "Is the yelling over now?" It was Oren. Casimir did not move. He did not turn. He kept his face toward the fog. "Yes, son," he said. "The yelling is over." Oren stood there a moment longer. Then she heard his small feet going back up the stairs. Marin wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "We leave in an hour," she said. "Yes." "Ambrose stays here with Delphine." "Yes." "The children come with us." "Marin." "They come with us, Cass. I am not leaving them in a house with a broken door." He did not argue with her. She stood up. She walked inside, up her own broken stairs, into her own room, to the bed where 2 small dark-haired children were curled into each other, and she knelt beside the bed, and she watched them breathe, and she whispered the words she had whispered to them every night of their lives. "You are safe. You are safe. You are safe." Downstairs, Casimir Draven started her car. They drove east into the sunrise. The twins slept in the back of Casimir's car, which was not his city car, but a heavier thing with 4 doors and tinted windows, and a seat already fitted with a pair of child harnesses that Marin did not ask about, because if she asked about it, she would not be able to keep driving. She drove the first 3 hours. Casimir drove the rest. Neither of them turned on the radio. Neither of them reached for the other's hand. They sat in the same quiet that had stretched between them on the porch. An honest quiet. A quiet that knew what it was. Haldren came up out of the valley as the sun was climbing. "That is the river," Casimir said. "I remember. The long bridge is not the fastest way. We take the second one, past the old mill." "Cass." "Yes. There is smoke." He looked. Above the city, above the low buildings of the east side, above the glass tower that she knew without being told was his own, there was a column of black smoke rising straight up into the pale gold air. Casimir did not slow the car. He reached for his phone. He did not dial a number. He pressed a short key, and the car filled with the sound of a speakerphone ringing, and a woman's voice answered on the first ring. "Sir." "Ingrid, tell me." "They took the tower at 5 this morning. Your father was inside. They have him, sir. They have him, and they have the lower 3 floors of staff, and they are making no demands that they have released to us in writing. Corin Halvern has called a press briefing for noon on the south steps. He is going to claim emergency regency under the old pact charter." Casimir's hands on the steering wheel did not shake. That was what Marin noticed. That his hands did not shake. That he did not breathe faster. that the only thing that moved in him, the only thing she could see, was the small muscle at the side of his jaw. Is my father alive? As of 20 minutes ago, yes. Ambrose is not with me. Ambrose is in Briar Cove. I heard. Dr. Teague is on a helicopter. He will be there in an hour. Good. One more thing, Ingrid. Sir. Miss Ashcombe is in the car with me, and the children. There was a long silence on the line. Then Ingrid's voice, very small, said, "Welcome home, my lady." The line went quiet. Maren looked out the window at the smoke over the city she had not seen in 4 years. "Cass," she said. "Yes. Your father." "My father and I have not spoken in 14 months. He wanted me to marry Saskia. He signed the original contract. He is the reason any of this was possible. Cass. I am still going to get him out of that building. I know." They came off the bridge and they took the exit and they drove up the long avenue toward the tower, and 3 blocks from the tower they saw the roadblock, and Casimir pulled the car into a private parking structure that belonged to a hotel that belonged to his family, and he killed the engine, and he did not move for a long count of 5. Then he said, "Someone is waiting in the lobby." "How do you know?" "I can smell her." Maren did not need to ask who he meant. They walked into the lobby of the hotel with one twin in each of their arms. Ren on Maren, Oren on Casimir. The first time Casimir had carried him. The first time any man had carried him. Oren's small head on the shoulder of the father he had met 7 hours ago. Oren was not asleep. Oren was watching the lobby over Casimir's shoulder. Oren had not, Maren realized, ever once closed his eyes when there was something new in a room. The woman waiting in the lobby was Saskia Halvern. She was alone. She was not dressed the way she had been in the car 2 nights ago. She was wearing jeans and a sweater and flat shoes and no jewelry on her hands at all, and her eyes, which Maren had only ever seen in photographs, and on a news clip Delphine had shown her once, were rimmed with red. Saskia stood up. She did not come toward them. "Cass." "Saskia." "He killed my mother." Casimir did not answer. "He killed my mother. He told me she died of a stroke when I was 11. He told all of us. My sister and I have been burning candles for her for 16 years. I found the file this morning. I went into his office, and I opened his safe, and I found the file. He used the same man, the same doctor. The same charcoal suit you saw in your kitchen 4 years ago." She was looking at Maren now. "I did not know," Saskia said. "I did not know about the apartment. I did not know about the forgery. I did not know you were pregnant. I did not know any of it. I thought you had left him. I thought I was being given a man whose first love had broken his heart. I thought I could be kind to him, and eventually, he would learn to be kind back. I am so sorry." Maren could not speak. Saskia turned to Casimir. "He has your father. He has the tower. He is going live in 53 minutes on every news network in the state, and he is going to declare you unfit and name himself regent under the 21st article of the PAC Charter, and he is going to announce that I will marry your first beta as a gesture of reconciliation." "Ambrose? Ambrose. Yes." Casimir's arm tightened around Oren. "We do not have 53 minutes. "No." "What do you want, Saskia?" "I want to testify," Saskia said. "On camera, before he does. I want to stand in front of every news network in the state, and I want to tell them what my father did to you, and what he did to her, and what he did to my mother, and I want to be the one who ends him." Maren heard her own voice before she knew she was going to speak. "No." Saskia turned. "He will kill you before you finish your second sentence," Maren said. "He has killed your mother. He is willing to kill your sister if he has to. You walk in there in front of those cameras and you are dead before the story ends. He does not care about witnesses. He cares about the throne." "Then who goes?" Maren set Ren down on the lobby couch. She set her down gently, and she kissed her forehead, and she stood up, and she looked at Saskia Halvern, and she did not look at Casimir at all. "I do," she said. Casimir did not argue with her. He did not tell her it was too dangerous. He did not tell her it was not her fight. He was a man who had learned over 4 years of looking for her that Maren Ashcombe was not a woman who waited on a porch. He kissed her forehead. He told her the twins would be with Ingrid on the 14th floor of the hotel behind a steel door that 3 men could not open with axes. He told her that he would be on the north side of the tower with his own men, and that at the exact moment her father's press conference began, he would be coming through the service entrance. "Give me 9 minutes," he said. "Just 9. I will give you 7. Maren. 7, Cass. He is not going to talk to me for 9. He is going to talk to me for 7. And then he is going to try to kill me on live television. And I would rather be killed on live television with cameras running than killed in a room where no one sees me." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you." "I know. Tell me you know." "I know, Cass." She walked out of the hotel lobby and she walked 3 blocks to the south steps of the glass tower that had once been her whole life's edge, the place she had slipped in and out of through service entrances, the place she had never been allowed to enter through the front door. The sun was full now. The column of smoke had thinned to a gray smear. There were 3 camera crews on the plaza already, and a small crowd, and a line of men in black suits at the top of the steps. She walked up the steps with her hands at her sides and her sweater buttoned at the throat. "I am Maren Ashcombe," she said to the first man in black. "I would like to speak to Corin Halvern. Tell him his ghost has come home." The man in black did not ask her to repeat herself. He spoke into a piece in his ear. He listened. He looked at her for a long second, and she saw in his face the small flicker of something that might have been pity. And then, he stepped aside. She walked through the doors. The grand lobby of the Draven Tower had been a place she had always thought of as a kind of chapel, tall and echoing and full of pale light. It was full now of cameras. Corin Halvern stood on a small platform in the center of it with a microphone in front of him, and his silver hair very neat, and a calm on his face that she recognized from the coffee table of her old apartment. There were perhaps 50 people in the room. Perhaps a third of them were reporters. He saw her. The calm did not leave his face. The calm deepened. "Miss Ashcombe." "Mr. Halvern." "This is a private briefing. I have brought evidence," she said, and she took from the inside of her sweater the small, folded envelope Casimir had carried in his breast pocket for 4 years, the one she had slipped from his coat in the car that morning while he drove. "I have brought my note. The one you dictated. The one I wrote in my own hand 4 years ago, on my own stationery, while you stood over me in my apartment and threatened my father's life. I have brought the envelope it came in, which has your personal courier's stamp on it, which you forgot about. I have brought a sworn statement from your own daughter who went into your safe this morning and found the file on her mother's murder. And I have brought myself, which is what you have been most afraid of for 4 years." The room went very quiet. Corin Halvern did not move. "Please," he said softly to the cameras, "continue to roll. This is the woman my son-in-law has been looking for. This is the moment where the truth is spoken." He stepped down from the platform. He walked toward her with his hands held open, the way he had walked toward her 4 years ago across her small apartment. She did not move. He came within 3 feet of her. "I am so glad," he said, very gently, "that you came." She saw the needle in his right sleeve 1/2 second before it moved. It was not long. It was not shiny. It was a short black thing no longer than her thumb, the kind of thing that was meant to be missed by a camera, and his wrist flicked, and it came free into his palm, and he closed the distance between them with the speed of a man 30 years younger. The doors of the tower lobby blew open behind her. Not the front doors. The service doors. The ones Casimir had promised. He was 3 seconds too early. Corin's hand was on her arm. The needle was against the skin above her elbow. She felt the bright prick of it, the cold spread of whatever was in it, and she knew without needing to be told that it was wolfsbane, and that she had perhaps 8 minutes to live. Then 2 small figures walked into the room through the front doors behind her. They had not been on the 14th floor. They had never been on the 14th floor. Oren came in first. Ren came in behind him. They walked hand in hand down the long marble aisle of the Draven Tower lobby, and the cameras turned toward them, and the reporters fell silent, and Maren heard herself say, through the fog of the wolfsbane, "No, no, no." Oren looked up at Corin Halvern. He did not speak. He opened his small mouth, and his sister opened hers, and what came out of them was not a sound. It was the absence of sound. The room dropped into a silence that was older than silence. The cameras went still. The reporters went still. Corin Halvern went still. His hand on Maren's arm went still. The needle in his fingers went still. Every living thing in that lobby, from the man at the door to the cat in the service corridor, was frozen in place by the shared projection of 2 3-year-old wolves who had, for the first time in their small lives, been afraid. Maren's knees gave out. She went down. Corin Halvern, still frozen, was the only thing that held her up. And then even he could not hold her up, because the twins' fear had found him last and was holding him hardest, and the two of them went down together onto the marble, and the needle rolled out of his hand, and the wolfsbane kept moving through her blood. The front doors blew open a second time. The last thing Maren saw, before her eyes closed, was Casimir Draven coming up the marble aisle toward her with his coat on fire. The coat was not on fire. Maren would understand that later. The coat was only wet. The sunlight coming through the glass of the lobby had caught it the way sunlight catches water, and her eyes, as they closed, had made the mistake her mind was never going to correct. She felt him lift her off the marble. She felt him fall to his knees with her in his arms. She felt his mouth against her hair. She heard him saying something that was not a word, only a sound, over and over, and then she heard another voice, a woman's voice, clear and carrying, and she understood that Saskia Halvern had climbed the small platform her father had just been standing on and had taken the microphone. "My name is Saskia Halvern," the voice said, "and I am the daughter of the man who poisoned the woman I am looking at, and the bride promised to the son whose tower you are standing in, and I am also the witness. I am the witness to 2 murders. My mother was the first. Maren Ashcombe was supposed to be the second. I have the files. I have the names. I have, since 7 o'clock this morning, custody of the original of a letter that my father forged. There will be no regency. There will be no wedding. There will be, starting now, a trial." The lobby erupted. Cameras. Reporters shouting. The men in black suits on the stairs dropping their earpieces. Corin Halvern, still on the marble beside her, was still frozen. Oren and Ren, still holding hands at the far end of the aisle, were still silent. The fear they had released had not yet let go of the room. Maren felt a needle go into her arm, a different needle. "Stay with me, Miss Ashcombe. Stay with me. This is Dr. Teague. I am going to need you to breathe in and out." She breathed. She breathed. She breathed. When she opened her eyes again, the hospital ceiling was cream-colored, and there were sunflowers in a jar on the table beside her bed. And Casimir Draven was asleep in the chair with Oren on one knee, and Ren curled into the crook of his arm. Oren saw her first. He did not cry out. He did not wake his father. He climbed down from Casimir's knee with the careful quiet of a child who had practiced quiet for all of his small life, and he came around the side of the bed, and he stood at her elbow, and he said very softly, "You did not die." "No, my love. I knew you would not." "How did you know?" "Because the other one would have died first." She lifted her hand. She rested it on the top of her son's head. "Oren." "Yes. You and your sister did a very brave thing. We were frightened. I know. Are we always going to be able to do it? I do not know. I hope not. My head hurts." She kissed his forehead. Casimir opened his eyes. He did not speak. He looked at her. He saw that she was awake, and that Oren was touching her, and he closed his eyes again, not against the light, but against whatever had just come up in his chest. When he opened them the second time, he was the king of Haldren again, and he was also a man who had not slept. Saskia, she said, testified for 3 hours. The elders met at midnight. Corin is in a cell that does not have windows. Your father. In a bed down the hall. He is awake. He is asking for me. I have not gone. Go. Marin. Go, Cass. Whatever he did, he is your father, and you have not spoken to him in 14 months, and life is very short, and you and I have just learned that, and if you do not go down that hall before the next hour is out, I will never forgive you. He went. When he came back, 2 hours later, his eyes were red. He sat beside the bed. He took her hand. He did not speak for a long time. Then he said, "Marry me." She laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in 4 years. It came out cracked. Your last engagement did not go well. This one will go better. When? When you are out of this bed. In a room with the people we love. In front of the twins. Cass. Yes. There is a thing wolves do. A thing I have read about. A thing you have never done with me. Because we were not ready. And then, we were not able. The claiming. The real one. The one that seals a mate bond fully. I know. I want that. Before the wedding. Marin. Tonight. Here. Quietly. With no one watching but the children, who have a right to watch. And Saskia if she wants. Because she has earned the right. Tonight, Cass. I am not waiting another day. He pressed her hand against his mouth. Tonight. He agreed. It was not a ceremony the way the old books described it. The nurse did not know what was happening. The overhead light was fluorescent. Marin was in a hospital gown. Casimir had changed into a clean shirt, and the smell of cedar aftershave that she had not smelled in 4 years made her eyes water the moment he sat down on the bed beside her. Oren and Ren sat at the foot of the bed. Saskia stood by the window. Dr. Teague, who was a wolf, stood by the door and closed his eyes and did not watch, because to watch was not his right. Marin tilted her head and she bared the side of her throat the way her own wolf, the one she was only beginning to know, told her to. Casimir bent to her. He pressed his mouth to the skin over her pulse, and then, very gently, the way he did everything that mattered, he bit. The bond closed. She felt it go all the way through her, the way a door closes in a house in which every door has been open for 4 years. She felt his mind brush hers. She felt the whole of him, the grief, the search, the 400th reading of the last report, the night he had slept on the floor of her old apartment because he could not bear the empty bed. She felt him feel the whole of her in return. He lifted his head. His breath was uneven. He tilted his own head. She did what had been done to her. She bit. And she tasted him. And she tasted underneath the copper, a kind of homecoming that she would never find the words for. At the foot of the bed, Ren whispered to Oren, "Is that how people get married?" "I think so," Oren whispered back. "It is weird. I like it." Marin laughed into Casimir's shoulder. He laughed into her hair. It was the first time they had laughed at the same thing since the winter of the snowdrift, and the sound of it, together, was a thing neither of them had known they could still make. 6 months later, on a Sunday in October, Marin stood at the kitchen window of a house that was not in Briar Cove and not in Haldren, a house on a lake halfway between them, and she watched Casimir Draven teach 2 3-year-old children how to skip flat stones across the water. Oren's first stone sank. Ren's second stone bounced 4 times. Casimir knelt behind her and put his hand over her small hand and showed her the wrist again. On the porch of the house, in a rocking chair with a blanket over his knees and a coffee in his hand, a thin old man with Marin's eyes watched his grandchildren throw stones at the lake, and he smiled a small smile, because he did not remember her name anymore, but he remembered her face. Marin pressed her hand flat against the window. She did not whisper anything this time. She did not need to.